Good day, everyone. This is the English exam paper 2 help for grade 8 2024 in term 3. So we have done paper 1 before, and many of you said that this actually did help for the Zoom call before the exam. And so I decided to do another one because of the requests. And also it would be helpful for you just to understand what to expect for tomorrow. All right. Welcome to the Zoom call on paper 2. If you are here, it means that you would like some guidance on the exam for tomorrow. So without further ado, let's begin. So first, let's deal with the time allocation and the mark allocation. You have 1 hour and 30 minutes in this exam. The mark allocation is 60 marks. Then what we do is divide it by 2, and 30 would be your term mark. Right, you'll be given 10 minutes reading time before you write the exam, so read very carefully. There are 3 specific sections. Sometimes paper 2 has 4 sections, including drama, which takes maybe the second section. But for me specifically, we did not do the drama. So what we're doing instead is just the novel. You understand? So the novel, then section B would be your short story, and section C would be poetry. 20 marks each. So 20 marks for the novel for us, which is the Giver. 20 marks for the short story, which was Dip in the Pool. And yes, and then for section C, we have our poetry. Then let's deal with all of these. First, we have the Giver. We have gone through 23 chapters of the Giver in class, and you will be asked on some of these questions that we have done. I can't tell you, of course, I can't give you the exact answer for what is in the exam. But if you have read the book, if you have answered the questions, and if you did that activity with the movie versus the book, and you've had a lot of points that said the differences, then you should know the story by now. I also made a game on Lotto Games to test your knowledge. I have a question. Am I going to give a paragraph? I'll give an extract, yes, but the questions are not only for that extract, it's for many questions or many chapters in the novel. So I'd ask general questions as well. And that's why it's important to know the book in its entirety, which majority of you do know from what I saw when marking your books and seeing the movie versus book differences. You do understand the differences in the novel and what you saw in the book, or what you read in the book, my bad. But yes, this is just essentially testing your knowledge on the Giver. And the games that I put up, not all of those questions are in the exam. Be wary of this. So you don't only do the link, the games. These are some of the covers of the Giver from the novel. And if you understand why the bike is there, if you understand why the apple is over there, and why an old man is on the cover. Once we've read the novel, we understand the basic covers and the meaning, the deep meaning behind each one. Okay, so this is what I made, the games I have made. I did put some links to the games, for example, Lotto, and for the other ones, it's quizzes. But it's just fun activities that will help you. And I do have codes for different classes. So once you go in, then you say, okay, you click play, and then you type in your code for your specific class. And some of you may have tried it before already. Right, so let's try and play the game together. See if we can get the answers right. Okay, class code. I'm going to use, I'm going to use 8A's class code. It's a very fun activity for you to test your knowledge. So basically what it is 15 questions of the Giver, just random questions on the Giver, and you are answering these questions using a game. Okay. So I see there's many options, so now I'm thinking what would be, I'm going to try a Riddle Baker, for example. I'm just giving an example of how these games work. You can click any option and it should give you. Okay, I'll try the challenge one. What does one receive at the age of 9? So this is the giver, and you answer the questions of what people receive at the age of 9. Evening telling of meals. Why is no one allowed to utter the name of the previous receiver? She failed, so her name. So it's questions and answers that will help you to answer. Okay, this one's too fast, I think. But it's questions and answers that will help you in answering the giver questions. But I'll show you this one instead, because it's just like the easier version of it. So what ritual does Jonas's family do after evening meal? So questions like this would be in game format for the rest of the games. And then you can easily answer the question. Okay, why was Jonas skipped at the ceremony? If you can unmute and then answer the question, then I know that all of you in this room understand. Why was Jonas skipped at the ceremony?
He is selected as the next receiver of memory.
Well done. Okay, that's why he was skipped by the chief elder. What physical trait do Jonas and Gabriel share?
Pale eyes.
Well done. Why is no one allowed to utter the name of the previous receiver?
She failed, so her name was not to be uttered.
Well done. I can tell that you are passing. What is the treatment after the stirrings? So once you have these stirrings, there's a specific treatment.
Pulse.
Well done. What change does Jonas notice in the audience?
The skin color changed.
Well done. The skin color changed to red. What is the first memory the giver transfers to Jonas?
Snow.
Snow.
Well done. What do nurturers have to do in the case of twin babies?
The one that lays what less gets raised. Yeah.
Excellent. So it's just general questions like these that will that could be asked to you, and if you know the actual answers, then you can easily pass this section. What number is Jonas?
1119.
What is the last rule Jonas receives in his folder?
You may lie.
You may lie.
Which memory did Jonas first transmit to Gabriel? So these types of questions.
Soil.
Yes, see, it's quite easy if you have read the book and you know the story. What does one receive at the age of 9?
Bicycles.
Easy. What ritual does Jonas's family do after the meal, after evening meals?
The evening telling feelings.
Nice. Okay, so it's asking the same questions again. But definitely name the previous receiver of memory.
Rosemary.
What is waiting for Jonas on the other side of the hill at the very end? This is the very
A sled and houses with people celebrating Christmas.
nice. Excellent. See, so these types of questions, all the games do is it allows us to play these questions in game format, essentially. But yes, well done, everyone. I can see that you have studied very well for the section. And for specifically, I want to show you this one. Okay. So you've gotten this before, but here are It's on Google Classroom as well. But for each section, we have chapters that I asked you, and you answered the questions already. Okay, so the best advice I can give you is go through these sections, right? And then just go through them and make sure that you understand the story in its entirety. It's not that difficult. If you know the story, then you will pass with flying colors. I promise you that. So in chapter 3 to and questions like the physical trades, so many of the important points, what changed, the apple, the rule against bragging. I'm just like scanning through these. But for you, you'd not exactly scan through, but make sure you know the content. What is this feeling of wanting? It's the stirrings, the treatment, and you told me it's pulse. So it's questions like these that you have to look out for. How are Jonas and Harriet both 11, 19s? The jobs they get, the capacity to see beyond, and what happened in the auditorium with the audience. So, in general, the questions. And please don't get confused. This is really important to not get, because if I see you answering questions and you answer the movie, then we're going to have a problem because I know you didn't read the book. Please be careful. The instructions in the folder. So he received these, you said you may lie is the last one, that is correct. So these different options, some were different from the movie, if you remember that. And then, yeah, so just go through the answers and the idea of freedom and choice. So the themes often pop up in these questions as well. What choices don't they have that we have? Jonas felt lonely. Okay, so many of the themes also pop up in the questions that we've dealt with. This idea of twin babies, the memories that he receives, that they don't have in the community, but we have in our lives. This idea of love, Rosemary, and what happened to Rosemary and why she was a disgrace. Music at the end of the story, Gabriel. Yeah. Oh, did we end? Okay, that's it. Yeah, so those are the 23 chapters. You go through it, make sure you understand the story, you understand the content. If you know the content, you're good to go. Then you will pass very well, in fact. Okay, I just want to quickly go through the chat. What must we do from chapter 1 to 21? You study. You study the chapters, yes. 20 chapters, yes, it was 20 chapters, but you're lucky we didn't do other books which had, you're not cooked, okay? You're not cooked. If you know the story, you'll be fine. And if we've read the book, we've gone through the questions, then, and you know the answers, which many of you do. Right, but you're really not cooked if you go through the content. If you have read the book, then you'll be fine. Right, and also play the games because it will help you. Then we'll deal with Dip in the Pool, the short story by Roald Dahl. You study your notes from the PowerPoint and the questionnaire. Once you're done, you can play the quizzes game. So what is Dip in the Pool, first of all? It's the story about William Bottieball, and you can see some of the illustrations people made of it is quite well done. This picture really annoys me a bit because in the story, Mrs. Renshaw felt seasick. She got out of her seat, and then Mr. Bottieball sat in her seat to speak to the purser. So this illustration just annoys me only a little bit, but the illustrations are still well done. This was a movie of Dip in the Pool that we have over here. It's about William Bottieball and how he bids on a specific amount to buy something for his wife, but unfortunately things go outy and he does not get the money. Right. Okay, let's go back to the game. Okay, let's answer this together. Chat room. Right, you can see same rules apply for the giver. If you know the answer for the dip in the pool, then you answer the question by unmuting or typing in the chat. We show these options is not a theme of dip in the pool. I think I did this with some of you for the QR. Hope, yes. Right. What does Mr. Bottible wear to the sun deck to carry out his grand plan?
Tennis
Tennis
clothes.
clothes.
There you go. What do we learn about the old lady that makes his plan
She's
fail?
mentally disabled. She's mentally disabled.
She is, or intellectually impaired. Setting of the story.
Atlantic Ocean,
Cruise ship in the
1950.
Atlantic Ocean,
Cruise ship.
1950.
Yes,
Atlantic Ocean.
1950s. Well done. What's his wife's name?
Ethel.
Who is the main character?
William Bottible.
William Bottible.
How much money is in his bank account?
200 pounds.
And then he bids all his money on the auction. Who does he sit next to when taking over Mr.
Person.
Okay, very easy. So questions like this that test your knowledge on the story, to test if you know the story and you have read it. So in this movie, you can see, can I make it bigger? Yeah. So in this movie.
Well, highly exciting. Each evening was an auction.
So there's there he bets or decides, okay, now it's time. My plan is in effect. And then he jumps off the ship. Right, then he waves to her, help, help, help. But she, unfortunately, it's Maggie, her caretaker. She's saying, okay, where have you been? I've been looking for you. And she's telling her the story. She is telling her, but she doesn't believe her. Wave to me. So that's how the story goes, and that's how it ends. Poetry, Sonnet 18. So Sonnet 18 is one of the poems that we have discussed this term. All you have to do is study the questions you answered, as well as the glossary note I gave you, and with our iambic pentameter, the illustration. When I ask you to divide the syllables and add the unstressed syllable and the stressed syllable, if you can remember that. Then we have a quiz on Sonnet 18. I wonder if I can with Sonnet 18. First, I will show you how it looks like, what I'm talking about. Video up on my channel. But it looks like this. This is what Sonnet 18 looks like. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more loved them, and that you have them in your... But first, let's do the game together. How many lines are in the poem? So many of you
There's
have done
14 lines.
14 lines.
So we've done this with the QR codes as well for some of them. See, the poem contains 14 lines, quatrains, and couplets, right? Show the rhyming scheme of the poem.
Mrs. A, B, A, C, D,
first
C,
one.
D. Yeah,
Of this
first
one. Another explanation, the correct rhyming scheme is this, which indicates the first 3 quatrains and a couplet at the end. This is typical of Shakespearean sonnets. What is the eye of heaven in the poem?
The sun.
The sun.
Here's another explanation. It is the sun. Heaven is typically associated with the sky, and a sun looks down on people like an eye. So the eye of heaven, it's a very great imagery, but that is what it means. For the eye of heaven shines. How many quatrains does it have?
1.
One.
Quatrains meaning 4.
Uno.
How much?
3.
1.
Look at the chat.
3.
It's
Huh?
three.
Oh, 3.
3.
I see the chat. Some people are saying 3 as well, but that is right. 3 quatrains. The text contains 3 quatrains, which are stanzas of 4 lines each. Therefore, the correct answer is 3. 4 lines each consists of 1 quatrain. What is the extended metaphor of the poem?
Shakespeare's lover is being compared to a summer's day.
Brilliant. Okay, the correct choice. It illustrates an extended metaphor where the lover's qualities are likened to the beauty of summer. So a metaphor usually directly compares two things, but not in a literal sense. It's more figurative sense. Okay, well done. How many couplets does it have?
1.
I
One.
understand the difference between
1. Obviously,
Hey,
1.
1 couplet. This indicates that there's only 1 couplet present, 1 couple present, making option 1 the right choice. So 2 lines that rhyme versus a quatrain in which the lines rhyme with each other, alternating 4 lines. Translate, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest.
You will not lose the beauty you own.
You will not lose your own beauty, the beauty you own. Well done. I saw it in the chat. This one, well done. Okay, so you nor lose possession of the beauty thou owest, the fair, the beauty that you own. What is iambic pentameter?
A line of verses with 5 metrical feet.
Pay attention to the next thing that's coming up now. Important, iambic pentameter is defined as a line of verse consisting of 5 metrical feet with an unstressed and a stressed syllable. Like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's iambic pentameter, summarized. And that's it. Of course, you'd study more on Sonnet 18. Oh, I get a prize. Right, I also have a YouTube video of Sonnet 18, if you so need it, that explains explains everything line by line. So if I ask you, what does this part mean? Then you'd know it. Or what does this part mean? Then you'd understand. For example, let's go to the... Oh, here's the Dip in the Pool questionnaire, by the way. It's on Google Classroom. Everything I show you now is on Google Classroom. So the giver answers Dip in the Pool. This is also on Google Classroom under the Dip in the Pool topic or the short story topic. Okay, it's all in Google Classroom. The setting of the story, the weather, what does he bid on, the bank account, what does he plan to do with the money, his grand plan. So, I mean, everything is here as well. So make sure you have this in your book and that you do study the section of the short story with the notes that I gave you as well. So all of this together would count as important for the short story section. Then we have the PowerPoint of Sonnet 18. What is it about? Shakespeare and his lover. What it contains, which is important. The iambic pentameter, which is important. What the sections mean. He compares his love to a summer's day. And breaking up each section. CDCD, see Eye of Heaven is here with pictures. And then your eternal beauty, summer shall not fade, nor possession of the beauty you own. And in eternal lines you will grow, because it's basically saying that if this poem lives on and as human lives on, then you live on in the poem, therefore you do not die, therefore you are eternal, essentially. And there's a translated version that will help you. Shall compare you to a day in summer. You are more lovely and more pleasant. This is all in the YouTube video. which could help you in this poem. Definitions, like you wrote this down already, of iambic pentameter and the quatrain. So as you can see, it's 3 quatrains and there's 1 couplet. Understand? So A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, that's 1, 2, 3 quatrains and 1 couplet. And then you need to give me the iambic pentameter with the unstressed and stressed syllables. Remember, obviously it's so bad what I'm drawing, but you understand the concept, right? Okay. How many lines in the poem? So you answered these questions already. So this should be sorted for poetry. Any questions on this section?
Miss,
Yes.
what is extended metaphor?
That's a good question. So a metaphor is when you say something like, she is the apple of my eye, or you are a walking dictionary, or she is a busy bee, or he is a dinosaur. So it's basically saying you are something, but you're literally not that thing. But it's directly comparing two things that may be similar in one aspect. So for example, if I say you are a walking dictionary, what does that make you?
You're smart.
Yeah, you're smart because you're a walking dictionary. You know all your vocabulary and you're incredibly smart. So it's comparing two things, which is you and a dictionary, and saying that you're just incredibly smart. Those are two qualities that the dictionary and you share. So in this sense of an extended metaphor, it's not only in one sentence where I say, you are a walking dictionary. It's throughout the poem I say that the lines that he speaks is so and so and so, and it's just the whole poem comparing you to a dictionary. Extended metaphor, not just in one sentence. And same with this, in this case with Shakespeare and his lover. It's not in one sentence. He says, you are like a summer, you are, sorry, not like is a simile. You are a summer's day. Okay, and then he doesn't only say this in one sentence, he says it throughout the poem. Shall I compare you to a summer's day? And then he explains it, extended throughout. Not just one simple, saying to your partner. It's just a whole paragraph of explaining the metaphor. Okay, does that make more sense?
Yes, miss.
Okay, and now you're asking what lease means. Okay, I will explain what lease means. Let's see if I can go back to that PowerPoint. Let's go here. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. So when someone says lease, it's like an apartment lease, right? So when you're in an apartment, then you get a lease, which is basically a contract. You type out contract, right? So a contract that says, okay, you're going to be in the apartment from this amount of time to this amount of time. So you stay within like a year. Okay, so it gives you a short time to stay in an apartment. So they're saying here, summer hath all too short, like its contract, summer's contract, has all too short a date. So summer only lasts from like January until, I don't know, April, for example. So it's very short, this contract that we have with summer. But he's saying to the girl that your summer shall not fade. Your lease or your contract, it won't fade away. It won't go away. It's not short like summer. The time is too short, but he's saying that you are eternal. So you're longer. This is what this lease means, this apartment contract. Okay.
Mathmas?
Yes?
I'm still confused about the quatrains and the couplets.
Perfect. Okay, let's deal with the quatrains and the couplets. So quatrain has to do with 4. Okay, so let's go back to this down here. A quatrain is a type of stanza, so it's like a paragraph consisting of 4 lines. So these are 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F. So it's not like a couplet where it's 2 lines that rhyme with each other, G, G. Rather, quatrain has a sort of pattern, A, B, A, B, in which the secondary line rhymes with each other. That's what a quatrain is. So it's different from a couplet that just immediately rhymes with the next line. It's a quatrain rhymes with the line after the next one, the secondary line. That's a quatrain. So if we ask how many quatrains there are, we'll have 1 of this, 2 of this, 3 of this. See, I'll show you in the actual poem. 1 of this, 2, oops, my bad. 3. There it is. And then there's the GG. Okay, so we have our A, B, A, B. That was our 4 lines. C, D, C, D. That's another 4 lines. E, F, E, F. That's our other 4 lines. G, G. Okay, so that would be our quatrain, quatrain, quatrain couplet.
Okay, shukran, miss. I understand now.
Okay, perfect. Anything else in Sonnet 18 before we go into Colors of the Wind? Then lastly, we have Colors of the Wind. Study the poem and notes of Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas. Once this is complete, answer the questions in this link. I recommend you bring a highlighter to the exam tomorrow, because there will be a question to ask, highlight a specific section in the poem that I give you. So please make a note to bring a highlighter tomorrow, pack it in your bag, whatever you need to do. I mean, technically, I'd also say you can use a pen to underline, but I prefer a highlighter just so I can see. All right. So just bring a highlighter to the exam for this section. This is what Colors of the Wind looks like. So all these points here, and how we annotated this back when we did Colors of the Wind. So you wrote in where the personification was, you wrote in where the repetition was, you wrote in where the enjambment was. But you're right, because shampoo, remember, who can tell me in the chat what shampoo stands for?
Simile, hyperbole, alliteration, metaphor, personification, oxymoron, and onomatopoeia.
Well done, perfect. That's exactly the shampoo method. So that's all the figures of speech that we have dealt with, or some of the figures of speech that we have dealt with. There was even posters in class where you can look up every day to see the figures of speech. Okay, so we have those figures of speech, and in this poem, you will have figures of speech. So you will see the shampoo method in some form here. So you can see the personification and alliteration and assonance and metaphor. Repetition comes up a lot. Oops, yeah. So there's even a figure of speech one. But specifically, let's try and do this quiz first. See if we can answer it together. Okay, in the Colors of the Wind poem, if anyone can answer what it's being compared to, yes?
Fine.
Brilliant. Okay, so paint is being compared to wind. Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? So paint has color. Same with wind in the song, it has color. Can you sing with all the voices of the mountains?
Personification.
Personification. Here's an explanation. Personification is when you give non-humans, animals, objects, human-like qualities. So that mountain cannot sing like a human can, therefore it's personification. Purpose of ellipses.
Represents a
Represents
pause
the
or more to
pause
come.
or more to come.
So if you watch Mamma Mia and she said dot, 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 so there was a pause or more to come with the ellipses. What do you understand by the word savage?
Someone who is cruel and barbaric.
Yes, so she asked, you think I'm an ignorant savage? So you think I'm cruel or barbaric? Then she said, I still cannot see how the savage one is me. So she's implying that you are cruel, or that John Smith was cruel or barbaric for what he has done. What is the figure of speech for every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name?
Personification. Personification.
Yes, also personification. Again, personification is when you give non-humans, like animals, objects, human-like qualities. So the rock and the tree and was compared to humans, has a life, has a spirit, has a name. What's this one? I'm running over a line onto
Enjambment.
Enjambment. Well done. I'll explain enjambment further for those that are a bit confused after this. What two figures of speech are in the rainstorm and the river are my brothers?
Is it alliteration and personification?
Say it again. I couldn't hear.
Alliteration and personification.
There you go. Okay. So you noticed it immediately. Alliteration is in the R and the R, rainstorm, the river. There you go. Repetition of R in a rainstorm and the river. Personification, rainstorm and the river are not literally human brothers. Okay. What is the figure of speech for we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends? This one's a bit tricky. I'll admit that.
Hyperbole.
I mean,
Hyperbole, please.
you're not
Please,
wrong, but
hyperbole.
it's not exactly.
We are all connected to a circle in events. A metaphor.
No. Oh wow.
Circle is being compared to the connectedness of all people. However, it's not a literal circle. But I actually will say hyperbole does count because it does never end when everything does end eventually. So, I mean, you're not wrong. You'll learn things you never knew is an example of.
Repetition.
Yes, it is a repetition.
Repetition.
You never knew is a repetition. What type of question allows the reader to pause and think for dramatic effect but does not require an answer?
Rhetorical.
Rhetorical question. Right? So the questions when she asks, how can there be so much that you don't know? She's not expecting an answer from him. Whether we are white is figure of speech for
Alliteration.
alliteration. Well done. What's being repeated?
Whoa.
The word whether we are white. Repetition. What's the figure of speech for taste the sun's sweet berries?
Alliteration.
Also alliteration. What is repeated?
S.
Yes. Excellent. So you do understand figures of speech. Repetition of S in Sanskrit. You understand the figures of speech in the poem, where you find repetition, where you find personification, alliteration, metaphors. And I recommend you bring a highlighter tomorrow, a big, definite. Please bring a highlighter for tomorrow, just so you know where, if I ask you to underline or highlight, then you can identify specific sections of the poem. There, shampoo is mentioned also. Okay, we only have about a few minutes, but shampoo is mentioned on the chat. Go, perfect. Right. Okay, so now we are finished with colors of the wind. Please make sure you have the questions and the answers. I wonder if I can show you the look at what we have on Google Classroom. So here it says enjambment is here, the rhetorical question is there, ellipses, repetition, a lot of repetition throughout the poem. You'll never, people, land. So there are a lot of instances where figures of speech and repetition is mentioned throughout the poem. Personification, rhetorical questions, assonance, metaphor, alliteration, it's throughout the poem. You won't get a stanza where none of these are mentioned. It's mentioned in every stanza. Okay, so repetition, alliterations mentioned, personifications mentioned. I love this poem because it has so many examples of it. Repetition, personification, metaphor, wind versus paint. So everything's on the page when you did it, when we did annotations together. And then the answers for enjambment or rhetorical question. And where's the figure of speech in lines? And then you'd determine what figure of speech it is. Okay, it's all on this page as well. On Google Classroom if you need it, but you do have the answers for that one as well. Okay, and then the final section. Figures of speech. I think this is the last one, then we can wrap up in these last 8 minutes. Look through your figures of speech notes to help you with poetry. Here's another quiz that we can try. Oh, by the way, I know that some links say it's expired on WhatsApp. I reposted it on Google Classroom because I did not realize it was a 1-day expiry date. So now I reposted another one on Google Classroom. I edited the post. So don't use the WhatsApp one, just use the Google Classroom links. Okay. Right, unmute, or can you say it in the chat? Compares two things without the use or like of like or as.
Metaphor.
The metaphor, well done. The siblings fought like cats and dogs.
Simile.
Done. Like. The lightning danced across the sky during the storm.
Personification.
Excellent. I'm glad that you are catching up very quickly. We're catching on very quickly. The root beer fizzed as I poured it into my cup. Onomatopoeia, fizzed. The sounds, fizz, pop, bang. Uses like or as to compare two things.
Simile.
So now we're going through the shampoo method, as you can see. Life is a roller coaster ride.
Metaphor.
Well done is comparing life and a roller coaster. Has two or more words in a line that start with the same sound.
Alliteration.
Excellent. I can smell pizza from a mile away.
Hyperbole.
Because it's a what?
Exaggeration.
Excellent. It's an exaggeration. Has words that represent a sound.
Onomatopoeia.
Yeah. Ethan never stops talking.
Hyperbole.
An exaggeration, well done.
Oh, my ears.
Those lizards were leaping on her lawn chair.
Alliteration.
Alliteration. Because repetition of what?
L.
Lila. Extreme exaggeration is used, is A.
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole.
Excellent. Gives human qualities to something that is not human.
Personification.
Personification.
Personification. Okay, excellent. Well done. So if you got all of that right and you found that quite easy, then you know, understand and know the concepts of figures of speech. So congratulations. Lovely stuff, everybody.
Yay.
Okay, so we are done with the presentation. It's excellent. We've gone through all the notes, closing assembly. Right, so this is where I say goodbye to you for now. As our day comes to a close, we take a moment to reflect on everything we've done. We have finished 23 chapters of The Giver. We've even watched the movie. For Dip in the Pool, we've completed all the questions. And for poetry, we've completed all the poems, including Sonnet 18. And we've done the questions. We've even done iambic pentameter. And we've done colors of the wind. You understand all your figures of speech, and you answered those questions very easily. So we've learned a lot throughout this term. We've learned a lot throughout the year. Alhamdulillah, you also are participating in this Zoom call. So yes, until next time, have a wonderful day. And remember, learning is an ongoing adventure. Good luck for your exam tomorrow and the week after. I may make a Zoom call for that specific and transactional piece, paper 3. But for now, thank you for joining. And I will put this link on YouTube, inshallah, tomorrow if I have time. But you have joined in on the Zoom call and you should have an advantage for tomorrow. Any other questions before I close off?
No.
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 No, any other explanations for those that said you are a bit confused? Nothing? Okay. Yes.
No.
Okay, there's one. Yes, please explain. History, miss. No, I will not do history. I'm not your history teacher. Please ask anything to do with the sections.
Miss, I'm still confused about the chapters. Must we start from chapter 1?
I say study what you do have from your book when you answer the questions. I also put it on Google Classroom if you don't have all of them, but you should be able to see the question and answer it
So-
out your book, is what I'm saying.
So we must just study the chapters from what we did in term 3 or term 2.
I'm saying that there's not a specific term I'm asking you to look at. I'm making you, I'm asking you to look at the novel from its entirety. And if I had to ask you a question, you know how to answer it because you have read the novel and you answered the questions before.
Okay. Shukran, Miss.
Okay, Afwan, anybody else? I love the confidence that you're going to pass. I love it. Please make sure that that does not exempt you from studying. Study hard on history and
Miss?
English. Yes.
Ma'am, this whole slide point that ma'am, the slideshow that ma'am was like going through while we're doing this is on YouTube. Oh.
Okay, anybody else? You won't be cooked. You will let us cook. I will let you cook during this paper as you are going through it, and then I mark very lovely all your questions. Right, tick, tick, tick. I would love to see that. I'm very excited for that. Miss would talk about enjambment. Yes, I did promise that. Yes, enjambment is a very important. I wonder if I can actually go to the PDF. Enjambment is the running over of a line onto the next. So, for example, You think I'm an ignorant savage, and you've been so many places, I guess it must be so. But so I cannot see if the savage one is me. So you see how there's not a line in which the sentence stops, then it goes into the next line. There's no certain rhyme pattern. Enjambment instead is just the running over a line onto the next. So there's no specific section, there's no specific break or rhyme, it's just flowing onto the next line. Let's see if I can show it to you in a better way over here. It's a continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the end of a line, couplet or stanza. So instead of the sentence ending at the end of the line, it just immediately goes on to the next one. So for this one, for example, I was stuck in a jam, meant to go another way, but lo and behold, with great luck, slight veer left, right on the track. So instead of, for this one, instead of going immediately throughout the sentence, I was stuck in a jam, meant to go another way, it goes on to the next line. I was stuck in a jam, meant to go another way. I feel like this is very significant because it shows how the words and the lines are jamming. Meant to go another way. So instead of going flowing this way, it just goes another way. Next line, jammed, which is a great way to use enjambment. And in the case of, you know, Colors of the Wind, I found that this one, a disorganized beginning. How can there be so much that you don't know? You've been so many places, I guess it must be so. So it's just like this disorganized and very uncertain beginning. But then she's saying the rest of the poem is more organized and saying how certain she is of being the way she is and loving the nature, loving earth, and being more sure and certain compared to this questioning and this disorganized beginning. We've dealt with the time allocation and the sections, the giver we've dealt with. We even did some quizzes for each section, short story, Dip in the Pool. We even watched the movie. And Sonnet 18. We've gone through Sonnet 18, the questions of it, Colors of the Wind, figures of speech also. Yes, we've done a lot throughout the section of, or the session. And that is all for today. Good luck for your exam. Shukran for joining the Zoom call and have a lovely day further.